Alrighty, you guys, well, I'm your officiant for this evening, and I thought maybe we could meet and get a little temperature check in the room, take some notes, make the officiant's speech a little nicer. Stacy, let's start with you. How are you feeling the day of your wedding?
I feel like there's all these different voices in my head of like, but he has, and I have, like, I'm showing you, and it's like, and I'm fighting for you, and yeah, you are, but...
A little concerning. Alrighty, so Izzy, let's now transition over to you. How are you feeling before, you go to the altar and maybe say I do or I don't?
I hear dead in her eye and be like, this is why I love you, and this is why, like, you're gonna marry me.
Yeah, can't write that word. Nope, this is a holy ceremony. Let's just get on with it. What's going on, you guys? James here with another real recap and review of Love is Blind Season 5. This week we've got only one episode to talk about, and that is our wedding day for both Izzy and Stacy and Milton and Lydia. Who says I do? Who says I don't? Sight unseen. Isn't that how that goes? I don't know. Somebody get the Lacheys on the line. Episode 10 is titled Big Big Love, and it comes on the heels of a very up and down week 3. You can find my recap and review of those episodes in the description below, and if you missed it, I was blessed with the opportunity to be on Pay or Wait's channel and join Kristen Maldonado as well on a live stream. It was a lot of fun. So if you're new here from that live stream and you haven't already done this, hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, and hey, if you're brand new to Real James, I talk about movies, TV, and all the news in between. So again, you're going to want to stay plugged in, tap on that bell so you get notified whenever I drop a new video, hit that like button if you're a big Love is Blind fan, and get loud in the comments below and let me know. Were your predictions spot on, or were you completely wrong? Because I think I might have been 50-50. But before we get into spoilers, in case you haven't seen episode 10 yet, let's start with my spoiler-free thoughts. And I want to begin with this. Now that season 5 is almost done, because we have the reunion, which I'll be covering on Sunday night as well, I don't necessarily believe season 5 is a strong season of Love is Blind, and it might just be the weakest season yet? I know season 3 was a little forgettable, and even season 2 didn't hold up a candle to season 1, but after season 4 I thought, man, at least Love is Blind is getting back on the right track, and it really is just pretty good, bad reality Netflix television, if you catch my drift. Instead, with season 5, there were so many different mysteries happening behind the scenes, and if you haven't caught up on all of that, Renee and Carter had a huge falling out after Carter allegedly, according to Renee, brought a woman on set during Izzy and Stacy filming in an apartment poolside. It was kind of odd, but there's a lot to unravel there, and of course the sexual abuse allegations, and it's not great. It definitely feels like Love is Blind is in a bad spot, not just because this season was lacking in drama and lacking in quality compared to its predecessors. Instead, there's a lot of off-screen happenings that really bogged down this season, and I was really curious, why do we only have 2 engaged couples? It feels lacking, and that was my big concern after we left the pods and after we left Cancun. I definitely was nervous about the final product, the final stretch of episodes, and it just feels like things are trending downwards. Now, did the weddings episode at least deliver and end season 5 on a strong note? Well, I would say no. And it's not that there wasn't drama and there's not enough for us to talk about, because we got a lot to talk about, especially with Izzy and Stacy. I just feel like it was very anticlimactic and something was missing this season. And that's a problem. Usually when you watch a drama or a scripted show, you can be okay with a cliffhanger, you lead into the next season, but for reality television, it just feels like there needs to be a nice strong conclusion, and there wasn't. And I didn't feel that way. I came away really underwhelmed. So yeah, season 5 of Love is Blind just doesn't hit the same for me. I mean, I'm sure most of you would probably think the same, and there's maybe some of you that don't. Some of you that love season 5 and think it might be the best, and that's okay too. I respect that. Just for me personally, season 5 was a huge drop off, and it makes me wonder if Love is Blind needs just a tad bit of a break in between its season releases. I don't think that's the case, and hey, we'll be talking about it on the channel anyway with season 6 and season 7, but yeah, it just feels like they need to maybe go back to the drawing board on how they get contestants onto the show and how they handle things from the pods to the altar. So with that being said, there's really not too much else for me to talk about in the spoiler-free section. I was going to bring up how the editing was a bit funky towards the end of this episode, but that's kind of par of the course for Love is Blind. So now, this is your spoiler warning, because we're about to get into who says I do and who says I don't-ish. Yeah, there were some very interesting answers and responses at the altar, so we gotta start here. It's wedding day, and we're gonna begin with Milton and Lydia. I found the location for weddings this season to be quaint and very nice, very southern hospitality kind of vibe, and it felt kind of different compared to what we've seen in previous seasons. I will give it that. You know, the white car, the old white car, and then the old house, you know, and it felt kind of cool. I don't know, this is kind of nice. You know, I don't necessarily think the wedding itself looked beautiful, but at least where they got ready and set up, and that looked nice. So Lydia arrives, she sits down in the makeup chair, and all of a sudden her bridal party comes in the door bringing the energy, literally. I mean, they were bringing the hoops and the hollering, and they were just, hey, you know, when you're hyping your friend up, I get it, you know, you need a good group of friends like that. So yeah, it was nice to see people come out and be there for her. Her mom was front and center crying, and yeah, it was an emotional day for Lydia and also an emotional day for her mom and her brother. Actually, did she have two brothers? I'm trying to remember. I think the second gentleman was her brother as well. So as Lydia is getting ready for her big day, she says in her testimonial that she has no doubt that Milton is the one for her. And are we surprised? Absolutely not, guys. Lydia was all in on Milton. However, it was giving, okay, Izzy, you were my first choice, to Milton, you're my second vibes. But it did feel more genuine as time went on this season. And as weird as it sounds, I kind of was rooting for Milton. So because of that, I have to also root that Lydia won't break his heart. So it's very interesting to see how my perception has changed on the couples in the pods and then out of the pods. In the pods, Lachey and Leah were my favorite couple until Lachey and Leah had the big falling out. And now Milton, Lydia, it's not that I am a big Team Lydia person, it's just I like Milton. And speaking of Milton, we soon transition to him and his boys taking shots, and you know they're feeling gooch. At least that's what Milton said this episode. Someone asked how he's feeling, and he said he's feeling gooch, like Gucci. I've never heard it said like that. Now, one thing that made me laugh, but also slap my forehead because it shows truly how young he is and how much more life he has in front of him, is the fact that Milton didn't write his vows. And I'm not just saying he wrote them and he forgot them at home. He didn't write them at all. So when they're literally getting ready, his boys are like, hey, Milton, did you write your vows? And he replies, no, was I supposed to? Does anyone have a pencil? First of all, a pencil, Milton? Who's using pencils? Okay, wait, I can think of two people that still use pencils. But I'm genuinely shocked that he didn't have it prepared. I mean, we've all seen love, romantic sort of rom-coms and movies that deal with weddings, and people always recite vows, whether it be private or in front of your audience. So, homie, come on. So eventually, Milton writes his vows, and he's getting ready when his father comes to visit him and tried to give him some pretty good advice, I'm not gonna lie, talking about fighting fair, but also about making sure that you don't get enamored by the 2-year honeymoon phase and you just continue to stick it out with your spouse, your life partner. It was actually pretty sweet, and that was the most I've seen Milton's dad open up this season. However, the moment was marred by a little bit of defensiveness by Milton. I felt awkward in this moment. Let me know in the comments, you guys, if you felt the same way, because Milton was getting advice from his dad, and he was processing it, but then deflecting and pushing it off, like, that's not us. Our relationship is different. And then in his testimonial says a lot of people like to have these false perceptions, I'm paraphrasing here, of his relationship with Lydia, and they try to equate them to with other people. And like, I get it, but that's a separate subject, Milton. Your dad's giving you some really good advice, and it sounds like you're not taking it. However, I do think this is probably a product of Milton's upbringing. He's not very receptive to the advice that his parents give him. Maybe he's now thinking, I'm about to get married and I'm breaking free. I don't have to take your advice. When this was some pretty good advice to take, Milton. So it felt weird. It was an awkward moment, and I don't know, it didn't go over as sweet as I thought it would. Alright, so it's now time for the wedding ceremony. Everyone's walking in. Milton walks in, of course. Lydia eventually, but before we get there, I gotta ask one question. Why do they have Milton's sister mic'd up? Jessica, I believe her name is. We heard her very clearly, and you can tell, yeah, they definitely mic'd her up. I don't see a shotgun mic in hand, a boom mic anywhere, but yeah, they definitely had her mic'd up because she said something about Milton looking handsome, and then she said something as Lydia was walking in that the mic picked up, and I'm like, and good things, of course, not bad things or no petty comments, but I just wondered why. So it led me, of course, in my mind to think, is Jessica's sister gonna... I'm sorry, is Milton's sister Jessica gonna get up and walk out? Would be crazy. But that didn't happen, you guys. So eventually the officiant begins the ceremony, and it is a pretty decent ceremony because the officiant was spot on and definitely was one of the best officiants, if not the best officiants that we've gotten in Love is Blind history. He even helps Milton button up his blazer properly, for crying out loud. MVP. So eventually we get to the do you say I do and do you say I don't moment, and the music is queuing up. It's real dramatic, and thank goodness there weren't many musical choices that were too on the nose this episode. I mean, there were some, but it wasn't as bad as previous episodes this season. So officiant asks Lydia, do you take this man to be your lawful wedded husband in sickness and in health, for better or for worse? And she says, I do. Which one of you thought that it would not be the case? Of course she's gonna say I do. Not only was Lydia all in on Milton at some point after the pods, and well, in the pods as well too, I just feel like Lydia was looking for love. She wasn't gonna let this opportunity go. So Lydia said I do, and okay. But now it's time for Milton, and they definitely played up the dramatics with Milton, because not only did they do him dirty with an extreme close-up of the sweat coming down his hairline, they also kind of paused a bit. Crowd reaction, what's he gonna say? So they asked Milton, are you taking Lydia to be your girl for the rest of your life? And he says, I do. So yes, I was kind of shocked because my predictions were that Lydia would say I do and Milton would say I don't. I don't know. That was just my thought going into this episode. But they surprised me, and they were very happy, and God bless Milton's neck, because every time he goes to kiss Lydia, he is looking like he's going to need to see a chiropractor eventually. I did find it really funny that the officiant didn't say kiss the bride or you may now kiss the bride before they actually kissed. It was Milton's dad that pointed it out too, so just another instance of, I guess they're inexperienced? I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure Lydia knew better, and Milton was just like, let me go in on it. So it was so funny, but yeah, they had a nice reception. I wish they wouldn't cut the reception so short. Let us live in the moment a little bit. Instead, they gave us this weird montage of past contestants in the pods and their confessions of what they wish they would have done better and how they felt, and is Love Really Blind? And I'm like, I don't know. So you guys, it's now time to get into Izzy and Stacy's big day. And I have so many notes. I'm serious. I'm scrolling through and I haven't stopped. So let me try to condense this just a little bit and make it sound coherent. So Stacy and Izzy arrive to their locations to get ready and get set. Stacy looks happy. She's got the denim jacket that says bride on it. And Izzy's feeling pumped. He really is pumped for this day, guys. And of course, leave it up to Stacy to say some things that sound very weird on camera and that could have been saved in the drafts. But Stacy says that Izzy's just a big chunk of meat. And I don't know why I said that out loud. It's weird. I never want to say that sentence ever again, okay? But yeah, so it seems like the editing was very much cutting back and forth more frequently than Lydia and Milton's segment, and I believe it's because they were building up a lot of drama here, right? So Izzy eventually is talking to his buds and has his testimonial interviews, and the common denominator in a lot of these sound bites, and we'll come back to this point, is the fact that he's still hung up on the conversation surrounding his financial health and credit score. You guys remember in episode 9, we were catching the tail end of that argument between Stacy and Izzy regarding Izzy owing, I think it was $3,500 and not paying back on time, and it really hurt his credit score, but how bad, we'll never know, unless they ask in the reunion, we'll see. But yeah, Izzy still seems hung up about that, and you know, I feel like Stacy necessarily didn't do much to ease his worries, but Izzy's insecurities are really coming out here. Izzy even goes as far as to say that love has no credit score. Izzy, listen here. If you have a 100, a 200 credit score, it's going to be real hard to provide for your family and your wife. Just saying. So let's continue now. Let's get past that. Izzy is just an anxious person, as you can tell, because I don't know if you guys noticed this, but his leg shaking was unreal. That's something that I've been working through, especially with my therapist. It's a nervous tic for me, something that I get from my family, but I've pretty much eliminated that. 99% of the time now, you won't find me shaking my leg while I'm sitting down. But Izzy, he was probably gonna knock the camera off the tripod. The producers were sweating. And like with any wedding episode in Love is Blind history, we get a lot of our contestants and one half of our engaged couples to be very confident, and Izzy was. He said in his testimonial that he's going up there to say I do. But what about Stacy? Well, Stacy was a little bit less sure in her testimonials, and then we start getting conversations while she's getting her makeup done that just feel so weird. Like Izzy's food preferences and his choice of restaurant as his favorite, which is Chipotle. And yes, it's pronounced Chipotle. But it feels shallow. It does not feel right. Like, why are we making fun of Izzy for his choice of favorite restaurant? One of my favorite restaurants, guys, is not going to be Texas Longhorn Steakhouse. No, I can't even remember the name. But Texas Roadhouse is actually one of my favorite restaurants. So you know what, guys? Izzy, stop victimizing him for liking Chipotle. It was a weird conversation to have. So as Stacy continues to get ready with her girls, Stacy's family, and her sisters in particular, feel like Izzy will be a good fit for their family. However, Stacy continues to reassure everyone in the room that she's still a little hung up on the fact that Izzy wasn't completely transparent with her. So again, you see this tug-of-war match going on right now, and when they watch this back, I'd have to imagine both of them are going to be feeling quite dumb. Stacy because, oh man, Izzy was all in on me for sure, and Izzy because Stacy just wasn't. But eventually we get Izzy's best man surprising the women, and that's never happened before, and I was really weirded out. I'm like, why is one of Izzy's groomsmen visiting the bridal party? Odd, but it eventually turned out to be kind of sweet, and then it got out again because Izzy's one of Izzy's groomsmen, Justin, delivers Stacy a handwritten letter, and apparently Stacy was all, oh, my heart's fluttering, but then she read it out loud, and I really wish that she didn't read it out loud because Izzy just, that was not a poem meant for anyone but Stacy. Nothing like sexual or anything like that, you guys, but oh my gosh, some of the rhymes, I don't know, I couldn't get into it. I can't even remember them because they were so bad and I had to put them into the far corners of my mind. And all the while I'm wondering, where's Izzy's mom? She's so sweet, and guess what? She still is this episode. She's there to support her son, be there 100%, and just reassure him that he's loved. And I thought that was so nice. My friend Chris from Tate's Take, he also puts out recaps and reviews of Love is Blind, and he mentioned last week or the week before that it's Izzy's mom that is probably the MVP of the season. She's so genuine. So alright, enough of the pre-ceremony chatter, guys. I know what you're here for. You're here for the wedding. And now it's time to file in and get ready, get comfortable. And why is the girl next to Izzy's mom's face like that? That's what Stacy would say, I think. But I was concerned in this moment. And I don't know if this is Izzy's family member or not, but it just feels like, oh boy, are people not on the same page in this room? I don't know. It's interesting, but eventually everyone walks down the aisle. You know, Izzy gets to the front, he's making an entrance, and he's like, I'm so happy to be here. I'm excited. And Stacy walks in, and you know, the dress is nicer than it looked in the episode where they went shopping for dresses. And they get to the altar, and the officiant is going through the rounds and eventually poses the question to Izzy first and asks Izzy, do you take Stacy to be your wife? And of course, he says, I do, right? Did we think Izzy was going to say I don't? Raise your hand right now if you thought Izzy was going to say I don't, because I don't believe you. And eventually the officiant turns to Stacy and asks Stacy, do you take Izzy to be your husband? And do just ever have those moments where you ask somebody a question, it's a yes or no question, and they begin with a complete sentence like, hey, Dawn, would you like to go and work on this assignment with me? Well, you see, this week it's been brutal. And I will say, and eventually you just want them to get to the part where they say no. But in this instance, Stacy says, and I quote, I do want you, and I want to say yes. Oh, Stacy, what are you doing? No, like that is... Oh, that's brutal. That's gut-wrenching. And I'm not the biggest Izzy supporter, right? But like, oh, I felt bad for him in this moment. This was rough, and everyone in the crowd, I was surprised we didn't hear any or anyone clutching their pearls, because this was rough. When she says, I want to say yes, girl, if you wanted to say yes, you would have. And eventually she says no. She does mention that they need time to work out things and that they're still lingering and around in her head. I'm guessing this is the whole financial conversation still bothering Stacy too. And I'm not shocked. Honestly, my predictions were that Izzy would say yes and Stacy would say no. I'm not shocked at the answers, but I am actually very surprised at how they handled it in front of everybody. So you know, in the past when someone says I don't, they'll storm down the aisle and get upset and walk away, cry. We saw that last season, and it's not something that would probably surprise many fans. But instead, they hugged, and then they kissed. Yeah, they did kiss. I have a note here that they kissed after Izzy said that he understands, and everyone in the crowd is like, they're kissing, but they didn't get married. This is awkward, and trust me, it was awkward for the general public as well, because I was watching and I felt secondhand embarrassment. I'm sorry. Everyone in that crowd, the parents, the family, the relatives, the friends, the loved ones, they're all watching this couple kiss after they just didn't get married. What? But eventually they walk off, and it seemed like Izzy was handling it well until I think reality settled in, and he went from feeling sad, according to him, to feeling pretty upset. Eventually Izzy says he's feeling numb and he's just tired of feeling this way. Stacy and Izzy, they have a conversation after the ceremony in which Stacy's trying to convince Izzy that, hey, I'm right here. Boy, I'm right here, and I will still be here for you, just we're not getting married yet. But Stacy said something that I think ruined it for Izzy in his mind. Stacy said she feels relieved and glad that the pressure is gone. Girl, you just made it about yourself. That's a red flag for me. Huge red flag, because Stacy didn't say, hey, I am sad it worked out the way it did. I'm ready to sit there and be with you, and it's a reality show, so afterwards, off air, I want to really see if we can make this work together. Instead, she's like, ooh, glad that's done. Got my 20 hours of fame and I'm ready to go home. And Izzy didn't like it. Izzy said to her that he's confused and wonders why Stacy says, I want to make you happy, when she just made him incredibly sad and now very upset. So Izzy believes that they're taking steps backwards, and Stacy disagrees. So Izzy's like, hey, this is a losing battle. I'm just walking away. And they do walk their separate ways. But then we get to Izzy's testimonial interview, and he is fuming at this point. The man is not okay. He's mad, and he's just saying things that I think were a little offensive, honestly. It was a personal jab at Stacy. He says it makes you wonder how she's 33 years old and still single, and I'm like, dang, bro, like you're single now too. Like, what are we doing here? That's not okay to say that about her, but I digress. And remember at the top of this segment when I told you we would come back to the money and financial conversations? Well, Izzy again says it shouldn't matter how much money you make. And he says that often this episode. It just feels like, again, he can't get over the hump. And it does feel like maybe Stacy put that seed in his mind about the finances and the home remodeling from earlier in this season, and it sort of lingered, and Izzy thought, I can't keep up with her lifestyle. The thing is, though, I think Stacy wasn't entirely wrong in setting that expectation for Izzy, like, hey, these are my preferences, okay? And this is what I have in mind. My vision is to remodel this home, XYZ, and I'm concerned about your credit health. But Izzy was like, I'm all in regardless. And you got to find the happy medium, I think, right? But in Stacy's testimonial, I felt that she was more okay with this separation than Izzy. it's almost like she was relieved. And honestly, why was I shocked? Because she literally told us that she's happy the pressure's gone. So I'm guessing Stacy's okay with this. And I know in the reunion, I'm gonna imagine Stacy's going to say this was also difficult for her. It just didn't seem that way, Stacy. So after all of the dust settles, Love is Blind Season 5 sees one couple getting married and walking away saying I do together. And it also sees the other side of the coin with Izzy and Stacy not getting married. So we're 1 for 2 this season, and guys, I just don't like those odds. Of course I want to see both of them get married, right? You root for love, you root for them to work out and have a healthy marriage. But we just needed more engaged couples this season. Guys, that I know I said it in my spoiler-free section, but this is one of the weakest seasons because there just wasn't enough material. Like, it feels like this season just doesn't really have an ending because we're waiting for more. I'm almost waiting for the deleted scenes, but we'll never get those. I just wonder what we hear about and see in the reunion. Who joins the panel? If I had to imagine, Renee's joining the panel, but Carter isn't. And I don't think we'll get Tran Dang, I believe her name is, because she was a part of the sexual abuse case that's going on. So I wouldn't want her to be under any other scrutiny or pressure, anything on the panel. But I almost wonder, do we see Uche and Aaliyah? I'm gonna say yes. They're gonna have to, you know, make up for their mistake last season, that live-ish reunion that they had. That was kind of a debacle technically, but that reunion didn't see Jackie or Josh, and we all know that it was a cop-out that they had a virtual sit-down interview with Vanessa Lachey. Not cool. She was lobbing them softball answers. So Lachey's, if you're watching, please on the panel, ask the right questions, get to the bottom of everything, okay? And one day maybe we'll get someone else to host the reunion if that's not the case. So there you have it, you guys. That's my real recap and review of episode 10, Our Weddings, for season 5. Izzy and Stacy not married. Milton and Lydia, they're together, and I'm really curious to see if they'll still be together by the reunion. So if you don't want to miss out on my coverage of the reunion this Sunday night, hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, tap on the bell, and hit the thumbs up button. Again, if you enjoyed my coverage of Love is Blind this season, it's always a blast covering every new season of Love is Blind here on the channel. And get loud in the comments and let me know, you guys, did the results of the wedding surprise you or not? Alrighty, y'all. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and get mentally prepared for the reunion, which isn't live. Praise God. Alrighty, y'all. Well, again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening.